Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sattology means science of truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake lie or imagination. Today on the show, we have a very famous person. He has come on the show before too. So without delay, let us welcome Larry Neighbor.
Hi,
Welcome to the
thanks for
show.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I know you're from the media mogul and we are like the small birds just starting off.
Sure.
Okay. Larry, I really like the book Offscript name which you said, and literally what we do is always off script. What we do at Sattology is totally different than what others even think what we do.
Yeah. Well, for me, if I would have followed the crowd, then I'd be, probably a busboy in a restaurant or something. It was we just didn't listen to people telling us what we can't do and what we can do and stuff like that. And probably in the U.S., best known for starting E Entertainment Television, the TV network, and it is quite a story because there's never been a TV network that's been started by a person as opposed to a big media company. And even to this day, it still stays that way. I mean, unless you're Time Warner or, one of the Fox or Disney, you can't just start a TV network. But somehow Alan and I managed to do it. And, E now is in 142 countries and arguably the biggest influencer of pop culture in the world.
So Larry, when you wrote this book Offscript, what was the script when on which you went off?
Well, everybody's kind of been bugging me and saying you got to do a biography book, and I just said, you know what? I'm still going. I still have like 10,000 new ideas that I want to do, and I'm not ready to write a last chapter. So no, I'm not going to write a book. And people have been after me for years to do it. And then finally, I thought about it and said, my real passion, even though I do TV and film and that stuff pretty well, my real passion is cooking. So I said, you know what? If we could figure out how to do my bio book and mixed in with a cookbook, I said that I'll do. So Off Script is really, it's a departure from just about every book out there, in that really we took my life, divided it up into like 8 different sections of my life, which are all pretty different. And the book really has the recipes that inspired me during those periods, mixed in with anecdotes of stories that took place during those times. So the one good thing that came out of these LA fires is stuck in the house, and I said, you know what, I'm finally going to finish this book, and we did, and it's looking pretty good actually.
It's what a wonderful story because I know I'm a non-fiction writer, and I think your book is also non-fiction because it's based on your story. It's more difficult to write a non-fiction book than a fiction book because in non-fiction books you have to just be accurate with everything that you write unless you want to convey something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole experience of writing it was kind of interesting because it forced me to start to recall stories and parts of my life that I haven't thought about for literally decades. And and a lot of it, just most of it, I go back, I look back and I go, I can't believe I did that, and you end up smiling a lot, and you remember a lot more about things than you would think that you would remember. So it was kind of a fun journey to write it.
Okay. Larry, tell me one thing, one incident, like something you tell me off the camera about your hobby being cooking.
Sure.
And tell me one thing, because I love to cook as well because it's one of my hobbies too. And also, the best scientists have been cooks, good cooks.
Yeah, because, well, for me, I started. My both parents worked, and when I was 12 years old, my my choice was either learn how to cook some stuff or eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every night for dinner. And so I learned how to cook, and I really liked it, and I was pretty good at it. And then when I was in college, I I got a job delivering. I was in New York, and I got a job delivering uh, food from a Chinese restaurant, which meant you go in the kitchen and you pick up the bags and you bring them to people's houses. And in New York, everybody lives on takeout, and so I would do that. But I was so interested in cooking that I would always ask the chefs, teach me how to do this and teach me how to do that. And they just thought it was funny teaching the Caucasian kid how to cook Chinese food. And then what happened was there was a snow. They were having a big party, a Chinese New Year party, and there was a snowstorm, and three of the chefs didn't make it in to cook for the party. And the head chef just looked at me and said, "Hey, you know what? How to do this? Jump in." So I ended up cooking in a Chinese restaurant for 2 years, and for me, it was like more my love than it was a job. I mean, I made better money than being a waiter for sure. Um, but then ever since then, I've just always tried to improve my skills. So I literally I buy a cookbook every month, and I cook the stuff in the book. And here I am in Hollywood. Most people in Hollywood have therapists. They go to therapy and they lay on the couch and they tell them all their problems. I just found that I can have the worst day in the world, but come nighttime and I go in the kitchen to make myself dinner, it's the process that just takes me away from the problems. And for me, it's almost like meditation. Um, I just kind of get lost in that whole process of cutting and chopping and color matching colors and plating and doing all of that stuff. So it's really worked wonders. It's let me live a relatively free life, where most people who are kind of in my position in the media world are they're stressed out all the time. I'm not. I just go and I know how to get rid of the stress. I go and cook.
Amazing, amazing. I think cooking is the best stress reliever. And I think eating what you cook is even more better because you know what you put in the food. Exactly, you know what you put in.
Yeah, I have at the and over time, I realized that if I really want the best ingredients, I got to grow them. So here at my house in L.A., I have a big vegetable garden, and we grow all our own herbs. And in the summer, we grow the cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers and literally everything here. So everything is, we know that when it's really organic as opposed to what you buy in a supermarket, which sometimes I question how organic that stuff really is.
I think the organic word has been misused, and I don't want to tell alarms or raise alarms on anyone, but it has been misused by many people in the.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the U.S. Their regulations on using the word organic are actually much less restrictive than other countries. I mean, if you really want like or the highest level of organic, you look at things like the tofu and the miso that come out of Korea, because they actually have the strictest standards for organic. You can't just call it organic. It's really got to pass a test.
Israel also has very good standards on organic food,
Yep, that they do.
and I have visited their farms in Haifa, near Haifa, and other places. Very good organic food,
Yep,
and they use the multiple crops at the same time technology, and which means that the each crop feeds the soil.
yep,
Each particular crop feeds the soil, and that's how they do it. Very intelligent way, using less land for more food.
yep. Yeah, they do a great job there.
Yeah. In India, also 90% of all food is organic, 95% pure
Well,
organic. And only in the US we have, because we import a lot of food actually, which we eat,
yeah.
and, and that's the reason. Tell me one story from the book which you'd like to share to the viewers about it.
Well, one of the funniest ones, which amazes me, way back then when Alan and I, um, Alan Marufka is my partner, um, we were thinking after we said, okay, what do we do next? and we were going to start a new TV network called FXTV, Fitness and Exercise Television. And we brought in partners. Well, Bruce and Chris Jenner when Bruce was Bruce, before he transformed. Um, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and a bunch of other people. But my partner, I was married at the time, and I was very family oriented and stuff. So I didn't really do the Hollywood stuff much. But Alan, the single guy in LA, was going out with actresses and models and all of that. So he actually went out with this gal, this actress, and when he went to take her home, it ended up a car pulled up behind him, and it was her lover, boyfriend, whatever, who just so happened to be OJ Simpson. And OJ found out, managed to get her to tell his name, and he threatened that he was gonna, you know, beat Alan up for going out with his mistress and stuff like that. And anyway, Alan and I knew the son of the chairman of Hertz, the car rental company, and that was OJ's big. He was the brand ambassador. He was all over television and doing commercials for them, and it was his main source of living in his post football years. And when he found out that we were friends with Blake, he all of a sudden decided that he wasn't going to beat us up, and said, "Well, we got to go sit down and have lunch and iron all this out and blah blah blah." So we went to a lunch in a restaurant in Beverly Hills called La Scala, and it's funny that when I'm writing this segment, I remember exactly what I had for lunch that day, which is crazy, because we're going back 20 some odd years. And so the La Scala chopped salad is one of my recipes in the book. Um, so that's kind of, a story that when I tell that to people, they go, "Really?" And so, yeah, we were going to do this TV network, but of course it unraveled when, OJ decided it was good to murder his wife and her friend. So, um, but that's to me that's one of the more interesting stories in the book.
Now, if I were to like uh, the when you were writing this book, when you're writing a book, usually a lot of thoughts come, and you want to say some things, and then you want to be politically neutral, and you don't want to say certain things which will affect somebody else. Are there any incidents which you didn't want to say in the book?
Um,
You can
yeah,
avoid my question if you want.
no, 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 it's fine. Um, I, I, I purposely didn't write um, nasty stuff about my ex-wife. Um, I was with I don't know if people know, but the president of Russia for 20 some odd years was a guy named Leonid Brezhnev. Well, I was with the niece of Brezhnev, so came from a prominent communist family and kind of grew up as a princess in her country and stuff like that. And we had we have one son, a young son named Alexander, and our relationship. That there's that saying, there's a very thin line between love and hate. This was one of the most volatile relationships two human beings could have, and there are just a zillion stories that I could have told there, but I just said for the sake of my son, I'm not gonna write stuff that is negative about his mom. So, and she did some pretty awful stuff, but I just wouldn't put it in the book.
If you look at the today's scenarios, like so, what this book conveys to today's audience, like today's world, where people can take inspiration from your book. What does it teach a reader?
Well, it's we again, there was never been a TV network started by people, and it just shows a kid from the slums or the gangland part of Brooklyn who managed to get himself up and build literally the most influential pop culture network in the world. Um, So it does show that it's possible to do anything if you do it right, get a little bit lucky, and you're a little bit smart. Um, but also one of the things I'm very much into, and it goes against a lot of the stuff they teach in business schools. Everybody I listen to now wants to be an entrepreneur, and they go, "I'm going to follow my passion." And I've just learned over the years that all of us, no matter what walk of life we are, no matter what age, we just have certain basic human needs. We have to pay the rent and we have to eat and stuff. And a lot of times people follow their passion, and it's going to be a road to nowhere. So you got to be very honest with yourself about self-assessing what you're doing. Not everything you're going to do is going to be genius and brilliant, and um, we all have the same amount of time. I mean, that's the one thing that all of us, I mean, relatively, some people live longer than others, but basically, time is finite for all of us. And if you spend it following your passion that's not realistic, you're wasting the time that you could be putting to something that could be realistic. So I've always been find something that you're good at, focus on it, and become great at it. And then that will become your passion.
Really, really good advice, because it's for the youngsters very much important, especially who are into coming into business, because people oftentimes follow others, and what is success for others may not be success for you. And you everyone is an individual, and they should respect who they are and where they come from, actually.
Yeah, and it's funny because the book is called Offscript, but the subtitle is Never Follow the Crowd.
Actually, the today's world has many opportunities also, and you're rightly said. One word comes from your conversation, and I have spoken to you for some time, and also I have met you in person. One thing I really like about you is that you whatever you have achieved in life, you come out as a very humble person, very approachable person, and person who can anyone can relate to and talk to, which is really good, because it shows your New York upbringing, because Brooklyn is a place that teaches you a lot. I have been there and I have seen the people over there, and it really comes out. The one word which I can say, contentment or satisfaction, is not being taught anywhere. Like being satisfied in what you have and build on it in a slowly, piece by piece basis. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think you gotta is for me it's about finding that happy place, and that's what I encourage people. I mean, money is nice, but but once you get to the point where you're going to live and pay the rent and be able to eat next month, it really is about pursuing the things that make you feel fulfilled, that make you happy. And I think all of our purpose here, again, no matter what your walk of life, is we're put on this earth. We need to leave it better than we found it, whether that be with personal relationships, whether it be with taking care of pets and animals and taking care of the planet. I mean, that's really why we're here, is to leave it better. And the more that we do that and the more we focus, I mean, for me at least, it's the happier I am. It's it's interesting, because people talk about being humble and stuff like that. So, I look at it and go, okay, so I discovered that people around the world love Hollywood and Hollywood gossip. And I'm going like, okay, that's not rocket science, but I mean, I got to say, I mean, we executed it really, really well. But, it wasn't like this miraculous revelation. But the one thing, people say, what is the one that really surprises you that you did? And I still have a big business in China, and I produce stuff in China in Mandarin for the local audience. So I don't do anything in English there. So I wrote a comedy sitcom about the contradictions of modern Chinese life. It's it's what not like rich is good or poor is good or city is good as whatever. It's about people searching for that happy place. Um, there on the show and again, this is in Mandarin, so so I'm writing comedy, which everybody says is impossible, um, in a language that I don't speak, for a country I didn't grow up in. And the show ended up going on national TV in China, went 72 episodes, and was actually nominated at the Asia TV Awards in the best comedy category. But it was the only show from China that was nominated that year. And I look back at that, I go, you know what? That's actually pretty cool. That one, I mean, to be able to write something for a country you didn't grow up in, and I never did comedy before, so to get that level of recognition, we didn't win, but just the fact that we were one of the five comedies from around the world that were nominated, I go, actually, that I like that one. That one makes me happy.
Actually, the most things which you never expected to become successful. Somewhere we don't know. We have no control over the success or failure. Some things you work very hard and it fails, but some things you just happen to do nicely and it succeeds.
Yeah, and that comedy was interesting because it's about a boy who grew up in a little village and was very good in math and went to Harvard. And when China began to transform, he started a company and made a lot of money and was living the good life in Beijing. But then his dad dies and his mother can't take care of the farm, so he moves the family back to the village that he came from. And so it's kind of fish out of water. Here they are back in the village that the kids are like used to going to Rome for the weekend, and here they are living in this little village in southern China. And the most interesting thing about the show was I needed a character that was very neutral. It's not rich is good or poor is good or city is good as whatever. And I said, you know what? I really can't find a person. So the whole show is narrated by a donkey, but the donkey talks. So the donkey just watches over everything, and he thinks the city people are nuts. He thinks the country people are nuts. He just can't understand why when humans do what humans do. So it was kind of an interesting twist. In China, the thought of having a donkey narrate a TV show was just so crazy to them, but it worked. It worked well. 72 episodes.
Like if you compare, now you've seen the life in New York and US or Los Angeles, and if you compare the people in China, was it Shanghai or some other city? Shanghai? Was it Shanghai?
No, no, no. We have offices in Beijing. We still have a big company there,
Okay,
but we shot that show down south, right outside of a city called Kunming,
Kunming.
which is in Yunnan province.
So when you compare the people whom we are shooting and seeing, comparing, what do you see the difference? Where do you see the difference, or what do you see the similarities?
Well, I think here in America, people are much more materialistic. Um, People in China, put all the government stuff aside, and we our press reports on the evils of communism and stuff like that. But everyday people in China don't really dwell on the kind of things that our press dwells on. I mean, they're much more into environment. They're totally into multi-generational families. I mean, one of the things that I love there is there's this incredible reverence for people as they get older and capturing the knowledge that older folks have. Here in the US, I mean, most kids don't even know their grandparents or have a close relationship with them. So they're very, very much into environment, and the people there are very much into, again, finding that happy place, or that place that they find their happiness, as opposed to the pursuit necessarily of just financial gains. So that kind of thing is kind of refreshing, and it's been fun for me, and we still do it. I mean, we still do a lot of stuff in China, and we just booked uh, Shrek the musical there for a 16-week tour. And folks in China, one of the things that people don't realize, they've had the one-child policy for 70 some odd years. They just got rid of it. And they also have early retirement. So, young family has a kid, the mother and father go to work, but then you have two sets of grandparents that are retired. um, and they're taking care of the kid on a day-to-day basis. So essentially, you got 6 adults that are focused on building the life of one child, um, which financially, emotionally, and whatever. So that whole multi-generational family thing, I just love. I find it so refreshing.
Yeah, the most of the I mean, China or any other country in the US gets caught in the political narrative here, which is politics makes a narrative here, which we see that all the time in the media and other places. Sometimes China is bad, then Russia is bad, then India is bad. Like someone has to be the evil.
Yeah.
Some one person has to be evil. Tell me one more thing about your in the book. How do you want to end the book? Where does the book end? And which is the last story which you tell in the book?
Well, the last story is, with the pandemic, um, I decided that, well, I can't go, I couldn't go to China because the quarantines were incredibly restrictive. They wanted you to quarantine for 3 weeks in a Chinese hotel, and I wasn't about to do that. And even though I said I have an apartment, I promised to stay in, they wouldn't allow it. So I was back here, and so I decided that I'm going to start doing stuff in the U.S. again, which I have started. But everything I'm everything I'm doing in the U.S. has a social good component to it, um, and so I've been doing stuff like financial wellness for millennials, another thing on called conscious parenting about trying to be a good parent in today's complex world and stuff like that. So I've kind of moved very much away from doing things that were just pop culture to doing things again that really have a social impact. Um, they could say not just is this going to entertain people, but they're actually going to get a takeaway that helps them live their life in a better way. So, and that's kind of where the book ends.
Uh, in in uh, in the you know, thank you for telling the story. So now in the California wildfires are happening now, as you are also in Los Angeles, and do you think that this type of pandemic, which I know for me it was very surprising when I used to go to China a lot before, and during after pandemic and before pandemic I was there in the CS Consumer Electronics Show there.
Yep.
And one thing I loved about that place, it made it look very similar to me like Mumbai in India. Shanghai was very similar to Mumbai, and everyone was wearing a mask over there at that time. And I never thought any American would ever wear a mask in my entire life. And we saw certain days in the US during the pandemic where we could only hear birds chirping, planes were down, and that was a very it, in a negative way or whatever you say. In my personal experience, seeing the nature blossom, I saw deers. I never saw deers in when the people are moving around in the daytime. Blue jays, a lot of blue jays I used to see,
Yeah.
and very rare. So, do you think that this kind of scenario, which we all experience in our own life, and it also puts a focus back on being less materialistic and more spiritual pursuits or inner pursuits, which we can focus on?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think what it really did was it made people, myself included, really just focus in on, like what is it that I'm doing, and is this really the thing that is going to make me feel good about myself, or again leave the world a better place and stuff. And I think that across the board, most of the people I know have just realized that there really needs to be kind of a search for balance. It's not all rich, it's not all money, it's not all, you know, screwing around and going to the beach. But there's a balance in life where you find that happy place. And I think more and more people, particularly young people, are realize that, going to an office, 5 days a week from 9 to 5 and stuff is not necessarily what is going to make you happy and make you feel fulfilled and stuff. And I think we now have this hybrid workplace thing, and quite honestly, in our company, we do hybrid work, and the productivity is higher than it was before. So there were just things that we did as habits where, go to the office and 8:30 every morning and leave at 5 and stuff like that. And then we just found out there was a lot of stuff that we do that we just really don't have to do. And that, people could spend more time with their families, more time learning new things, learning how to cook, whatever it is. And again, it's giving people the whole kind of better perspective on life. It's to find out that there's more to life than just making money.
Very important message. Very important message. I think viewers do get this book, Offscript by Larry Namer, and
Yeah.
and
It comes out on February 4th, so it'll be live on Amazon.
On Amazon, and also this year's festival is expanding your perspectives, which we are hosting. Last year was Finding Inner Truth. So Larry, you are invited for that festival by me, and want you to be a speaker again at this festival this time.
Be happy to do so.
And all the viewers, do like, share, subscribe, and tell me your feedback about this discussion. Also, write me a comment so that I know how we can get Larry on other things, because some you might be interested in his other experiences also. Give me a topic for me to discuss with him. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next show. Namaste.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.